a roof rack on your Toyota Tacoma is asking for trouble. Well, good morning everybody, and welcome back to Robmotive. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, please consider smashing that subscribe button right now. So is putting a roof rack on your Toyota Tacoma asking for trouble? You know, I thought about this actually before I did it to mine. You know, I've heard some horror stories, people talking about bolt holes that don't line up, threaded inserts that are supposed to be up there underneath those rubber strips that aren't there or are in the wrong place, and leaks. Lots of people have mentioned they've put the roof rack on, any roof rack that utilizes those holes, and had leaks. Well, I gotta say, I've put a couple videos up about this because obviously I do have the roof rack on my truck right now. So let me tell you, I think there's a couple of reasons people have big problems with their Tacoma when they put the roof rack on, particularly leaks. Now, I gotta say, I did have trouble with one or two of the bolt holes in the front. Things just didn't line up, primarily the roof rack. I think that probably there's some tolerance when they put those holes in, you know, where you can put the bolts through to bolt it down, and they're just off a little bit. I actually had to ream out two of the holes in order to reach that threaded insert, the threaded holes that are in the top of the Tacoma. Wasn't a big deal, but honestly, it's an OEM part. It should fit like any other OEM part should, but it did not. Now, that's not a big deal as long as you keep your head while you're doing this mod and just realize that you might have to adjust the hole a little bit. Wasn't anything major, not really a big problem, really more of an annoyance for me. But that's not the big issue. That's pretty easy to deal with. But what's more important and more critical, I suppose, is that you make sure you waterproof that thing when you put it on. You know, the first thing that you'll notice when you rip that strip off of there is there are little strips of, I guess, tape that go over the existing holes that you have to access. So some people I know go ahead and rip that whole piece of tape off. I would not recommend doing that. I would cut a little slit or two where you're gonna put the bolt down so that you can maintain as much protection with that strip of tape that's there as possible. Secondly, it's not enough to just use the rubber washers that come with the kit, in my opinion. It does come with little rubber washers. They go over that hole, and then obviously when you tighten the rack against that rubber washer, it's supposed to seal it so that you don't get any water leaks. Now, rubber, of course, over time dries out, gets brittle. When that happens, it can be as severe as just to completely break away, which then would provide no protection for water leakage into those holes, or crack and let water in the same. So the solution for me was to go ahead and caulk that area. In other words, the washers, when you get them, they have adhesive on the back, which is very convenient. You take it off of the sheet that it comes on, stick it right over the hole, and it sits there. I really like that. That's much better than trying to line everything up that you can't see, push the screw through, and maybe move the washer or push it to the side, which I think is another reason why people may have water leakage problems. Push it to the side and then don't have a good seal. But the adhesive really helps for that. But it's not enough. Like I said, I put silicone on mine. I went around the edges of that rubber gasket, the rubber washer, if you will, and I even went over the top of it, making sure that everything all around that was covered. That's just an extra layer of protection, I guess, so that water can't get underneath, or if that washer should crack over time or somehow disintegrate, you have an extra layer there to keep the water out. Now, I heard something else after I did that, something I was never aware of before, but apparently in some of the silicone caulks that are out there, they have a component in them that when in contact with paint or metal, they can actually cause rust. Now, of course you don't want that. You'll never see it to begin with. I mean, the holes are covered by the roof rack itself. So if rust starts to develop under there, you're never gonna know it unless for some reason you decide to look and rip that rack off. I don't know why anybody would do that. but that's the only way you'd know. So potentially you could develop rust if you use the wrong kind of silicone caulk and then have a water leak down the road. That would be a while, and if you're like me and you trade the truck out pretty darn often, yeah, it may not be your problem. But if you pick up a used one, it could be your problem. So I would check, make sure that whatever silicone caulk that you put on there is not going to be reactive with metal or even the paint that's up there and cause some sort of a problem down the road. Now, the last thing that I'll say, you know, what I encountered when I put this thing on, I'm not going to go into great depth because I've talked about this before, but another design flaw is when you put the back bar across, it contacts the satellite antenna. So it basically renders that back part useless unless you want to, you know, risk ruining your satellite antenna by smashing it, cracking it, who knows. So probably a better idea to stay away from OEM in the case that you're actually going to use the roof rack as it's intended, because it's simply not going to work. Now, that only happened in a short period of time. As far as I know, it was for the 2020 model year, and Toyota did correct that later on. And I've heard that they corrected it because it was brought to their attention that it was a problem for the roof rack. So they actually moved that satellite antenna further back so that it was not forward and conflicting with the usage of the arms that go across, or the arm that goes across that roof rack. So you should be okay. I'd say an easy way to tell, there should only be about an inch between the end of that satellite antenna and the edge of the back of the cab. If you've got more like 2 1/4, 2 3/4, whatever it is, 2 1/2 like I have, then you're gonna have the problem. And if you intend to use that roof rack for actually hauling things up there, you probably ought to go a different route. I know there are different roof racks out there that accommodate that satellite antenna area. In other words, they don't contact it or conflict with it. So that might be a better way to go if you're really gonna use that roof rack. Anyway, I just wanted to get on here, talk about that a little bit. Putting a roof rack on the top of your Tacoma might be asking for trouble. Leave a comment, let me know what you've experienced. If you've put one on, did it all line up properly? And did you consider these things when you were doing it? Did you add some extra material or caulk or something around those holes to protect from water leaks? I'd be curious to know. Also, real quick, if you're interested, I do have 2 additional channels. Robmotive Tundra, all about my hunt for the upcoming redesigned Toyota Tundra. And Robmotive JT, all about my 2020 Jeep Gladiator. Check them out, and if you're interested, why not subscribe? Don't forget to click that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. And do me a favor, smash that subscribe button on the way out. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there and drive. Bye.